How are you? I got your email. Thank you for your thoughts.
Hey, Tony. They're all going to buy something before they leave. George.
Hey, Bill. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Double teamings.
How are you?
How you guys?
Good to see you.
How are you? Great.
George, how are you? Wolf, how are you? Good to see you.
Richard Bramley, good to see you.
Washington.
Yes. Hi, I'm Andrew. That's Wolfgang. George. George.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How about you? Thank you for coming up. Very well. How are you? Yes. Clark and right. Good.
When we get started, we'll have everybody together. Your mom's not
Yeah, actually, I've got a copy.
Let's try it. Let's see if everybody gets here around 9:40 and then we'll get started.
Yep. That comes right off the web, about 3-minute search by me today. And there's an association that does it. They didn't do it in 09 because they weren't funded.
I have never
And it doesn't include the one that's
I have never seen that. This one.
Could everyone please gather around?
Yeah, let's get
Gather around
everybody
doesn't
in.
mean 8 steps away, Richard. Gather around. Gather around. The stove is warm. Get close to the stove. Ask Representative Minor and Representative Chapin.
You guys can come in.
No worries.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, one and all, for being here to learn about the proposal which probably has the greatest likelihood of harming small business in Connecticut in this legislative session. Next Tuesday in the Legislative Office Building at 11 o'clock, a public hearing will be held on a proposal the governor has advanced to revolutionize the way liquor is sold and distributed in the state of Connecticut. Before I get to the details of the proposal, I want to thank Tony Kimball, his wife Johanna, the owners of Goshen Wine and Spirits, Kate, the manager, and Patty. The town of Goshen doesn't have a gas station. It doesn't have a grocery store. This is the Cracker Barrel for our community. The people who own this store not only provide a service to the residents of Goshen, but they contribute to the community in countless ways, through charitable activity and through being an integral part of the fabric of the community. If you like what Home Depot has done for our local hardware stores, if you like what CVS has done for our community drugstores, you're going to love what the governor's proposal does for our neighborhood package stores. Ladies and gentlemen, the proposal that is coming before us could spell the demise of small family-owned businesses which lie at the heart of so many communities in Connecticut. We can ill afford to be visiting hardship on these small businesses as they work hard to make ends meet. The state of Connecticut has long had a set of rules about how liquor is sold and distributed. The governor is intent on changing the rules in the middle of the game to the disadvantage of small business in our state. And I don't think you need to hear from me. The evidence is standing behind me. We have several owners, hard-working owners of small businesses in this corner of Connecticut. And I can assure you, if we were to do this event in northeastern Connecticut, or southeastern Connecticut, or southwestern Connecticut, or central Connecticut, we would have the same showing of people that are working hard, paying taxes, and doing right by our communities. So I thank all of you for being here to learn about this issue. I want to recognize State Representative Craig Minor from Litchfield, State Representative Clark Chapin from New Milford, give them a chance to add their thoughts, and then you can hear from the people most directly affected, or the hardworking small business people that are here today to voice their objections. So, Craig?
Thank you, Senator. I have here the 24 pages of this piece of legislation, and like many people in the legislature, I spend a fair amount of time trying to get into the details. And for those of you who may be at home watching this at some point, this is quite an interesting read. I think the Senator is quite right. But not only will the families of these people be affected, many, many more will be affected as a result of this piece of legislation. I think there are a number of runs being done that have been done about the tax impact. It's not positive. In most cases, it's going to be negative because it will affect income tax, business entity tax, and so on. But most of these people know, and most of the people in the communities that I represent know, that if you go to a fundraiser anywhere, they've got a basket there. If you want to look for a sports team that's sponsored, usually it's these people, small businesses that put the t-shirts on their backs, sponsor dance recitals. This piece of legislation is going to advantage someone. There is no other reason for this bill to be before the legislature. There will be some small group of people who will reap the benefits of this legislation at the expense of many. And in the state of Connecticut, where 300 million just less than 3 months ago has been pledged to create 300 jobs in 10 years, it'll take less than 10 months to cripple this industry if this becomes law. And that's the scary thing about it. So I stand here joining people in the package store industry, but I will tell you that there are people at the wholesale level deeply concerned about the way this has been done and the effect that it will have. And I'm sure that by the time Tuesday is over, there'll be many more comments about that. Thank you.
As you can imagine, this proposal has generated an awful lot of interest from all of our constituents. Emails and certainly phone calls have probably increased significantly compared to prior years with various other proposals. One of the points that's made in most of the emails I've received in support of the governor's proposal has to do with the prices going down for the consumers. And I was looking through the Office of Legislative Research reports, and I found one from, I think it's from 2009, where Consumer Protection confirmed that there's no way to predict the price of alcohol if not subject to the current law, meaning the minimum price, suggesting that the industry would probably operate similar to grocery store loss leaders, where 1 or 2 items are sold below cost to get people in the door, and the price of everything else is higher than normal. He believes, this person at Consumer Protection, that in such a system, if all purchases were averaged out, in the end the total would be the same. So it'll be interesting to see, number one, whether Consumer Protection testifies on Tuesday, and number two, whether they reiterate what they said in 2009.
Thank you, Clark. I'd like to now introduce you all to the people who really have an interest in this, the owners of these businesses, and I'm going to ask Bill Four from Washington, Connecticut, to give us his take on what this will mean. Bill?
Thank you.
I want to thank Bill for his help in organizing. It was no small feat to bring together so many small business people who had to make arrangements to be here in the middle of the day. It's obvious that it is an important issue to all of us. So Bill, thank you.
You're Bill Four, F-O-R-E, right?
It's F-O-R-E. Yep. Actually, it wasn't hard to get these guys together at all.
This is your store?
No.
Oh, you're in New Preston.
No, I'm in New Preston. County Wine and Spirits is my store. just over the last couple of days in discussing this with so many people, other colleagues of mine who own stores as well as customers of ours in our shop, it's become apparent to me that our first and most important job right now is to communicate to the public that this bill is not just about Sunday opening. A lot of people see this as a bill that will repeal the blue laws that are currently imposed on liquor stores, and that's kind of the extent of what the public knows about it. And to a large degree, most of them are in favor of that. Can't blame them. What I'm trying to help people understand is that the Sunday opening part of this legislation proposal is just the tip of the iceberg, that there's a whole laundry list of much more important and critical issues that are also part of this proposal. And among those, probably the two most critical in my point of view, are changes in the pricing structure, the removal of the regulations which have governed our industry and on which the businesses that we all own are predicated. And the second one that's important to all of us may be a little harder for the public to grasp. So that's the one I'm going to tackle for just a minute right now, which is a change in how licenses are granted in the state. Right now, if this proposal goes through, each person who holds a permit presently will be granted a medallion. And that medallion is a saleable conveyance of the privilege of holding a license, if you'll put it that way. So I own a store, I have a license right now, I'll get a medallion. If you want to go into business, you'll need a medallion in order to apply for a new license. So I could close my license and sell you my medallion, and then you would have the privilege of applying for a new license. As it is right now, if you buy my store, you would have to keep that license in the town where it exists right now. Our present law says that licenses are granted on the basis of population, 1 per 2,500 people in a community. So if all of the licenses allowable in a given community are already in play, the only way for you to go into business in that community is to buy an existing business. The medallion system would allow you to buy a medallion anywhere in the state and then take it to any place in the state that you want to put a store, any town, which is regardless of the population of that town or the number of pre-existing licenses. And as long as you can get through local ordinances and comply with all of that and zoning regulations, you theoretically could open a store there. So in my little town, that's probably not going to happen. 2 stores in my town already. George and Wolf are here from my other store in Washington, our other town store. We don't need a 3rd store. But what this really means to us as business owners is that each of us own an asset, a business, and each of our businesses is valued based on 2 fundamental things. Our volume of sales, naturally, creates the value in the business, but also the exclusivity of our license. If you want to go into business in our town, you would have to buy one of our stores to go into business. With the medallion system, that exclusivity goes away, and the value of my business asset is eroded. This is tantamount to a pervasive destruction of privately held value, which is simply wrong. In the name of deregulation, to wake up one morning as if you were in a country where the currency had been devalued and the dollars you held yesterday this morning turn out to be worth pennies. Each of us owns an asset that we have cultivated for years. We have put kids through college. These are our retirement plans. This is the nut. This is what we own. And the exclusivity of that license is key to it. If that goes away with the medallion system, our assets are significantly eroded. Combined with the competitive disadvantage of large retailers being able to sell products retail, often for less than we would be able to buy them for wholesale under the proposed law, there's no way we can continue to compete. And when many of our small stores go out of business, the market for medallions in the state, which is a free market, the state will be glutted with medallions from stores going out of business, so the cost of a medallion will plummet. Anyone can buy a cheap medallion and go anywhere in the state to open a store. So that's my little part of the explanation of what's going on, but again, I would just go back to the big picture and encourage everyone to read carefully the full ramifications of the proposal to understand some of these very arcane subtleties which will have perverse and pervasive, destructive and sudden impact on our industry in Connecticut. Thanks. Yeah, Ira, you want to step up for a moment? Sure. Ira Smith from Kent Wine.
What's your name again, sir?
Ira, I-R-A Smith, and the name of my retail store is Kent Wine. And we're located, surprisingly enough, in Kent, Connecticut. So I've spent 31 years in this industry in wholesale, retail, much like some of my colleagues. We've all been in different levels of this business, so we have a pretty good understanding of how it works. The legislature imposes what they deem a necessarily high excise tax on gasoline before it ever reaches the pump. Well, alcohol is handled in much the same way. In this document I'm holding, which is issued in 2010, it shows that if you look at excise tax imposed by the state on alcohol on a state-by-state basis, Connecticut, of course, tops out near the top third. We also are less competitive than Massachusetts due to a higher excise tax. We are less competitive than New Hampshire, who decided years ago to be the monopoly in liquor and wine and lower their excise tax to become a big gross seller of beverage alcohol. So what we're saying is where real competition comes in is something we would hope the state would partner with us to have a lower excise tax. There's many studies that were done starting back in the Mescal era where when gasoline excise taxes were raised, the gross tax receipts the state received went down. This is truly the definition of a regressive tax, and we see alcohol, beverage alcohol, being much handled the same way. So we would enjoin the governor and the legislature and say, yes, we're all for more competition, and there's a very clear path as to how to get there. Thank you very much.
Richard? But I'm going to invite each of the small business owners here to take 1 or 2 minutes to give you their perspective on what this will mean to them. So, Richard from
Richard Bramley from Cornwall Package Store.
What's your last name, Richard?
Bramley, B-R-A-M-L-E-Y.
Cornwall?
Cornwall, and I'm in Cornwall, Connecticut, surprisingly. I've been there at Cornwall Package Store for over 30 years, starting in the 70s. And the proposed complete legislative package, and it really is it's a whole package. It's not just the Sunday sales that's the issue. It's the rest of the package, and this package hits hard at one of the core businesses in a small town. The legislation will slant the playing field toward the large corporate entities. This is really the crux of the issue that I believe. There are a limited number of core businesses in a small town, and they would include but are not limited to a bank, a coffee shop, a food store, a wine and liquor store, a post office, a restaurant, a gas station, a hardware store, an inn or a motel. Not all small towns have every one of those businesses, but whatever combination exists in that small town is really it defines the town's economy. And this proposed legislation will, as I said, slant the playing field and give a distinct advantage to the larger corporate entities. And has been reiterated before by Senator Roraback, the small towns, the core towns and the small towns are the backbone of the towns and are deeply involved in the towns. The economic impact analysis has concluded over and over again that local merchants generate substantially greater economic impact than chain retailers. For every $100 spent with a local merchant, $43 remains in the local economy. Whereas for that same $100 spent at a non-local chain only $13 remains in the local economy. And I think that's one of the key factors. With the current fragile economic recovery, there's no reason to be eliminating a small town core business. Thank you.
John?
I think the real question,
What's your name, sir?
John Payne from Classic Liquors,
P-A-I or?
P-A-Y-N-E.
P-A-Y-N.
I think the real question is why? Why at this time when we're trying to recover our economy, when we're trying to build our employment, when we're trying to buck up our small towns, particularly in Connecticut, why this move to basically, as you said, export our profits and export our income, export our employment somewhere else?
Gentlemen, anyone else want a minute? George?
I'm George Verastro.
Spell it, please, George.
V-E-R-R-A-S-T-R-O.
And what's your shop?
Washington Liquor Store, Washington, Connecticut. I'm the second store that.
Oh, okay. You're the competitor. Yeah.
Not only do I own the liquor store in town, but I also own the only grocery store. I'm in a small independent grocer. And I know firsthand what it's like to struggle against the big box stores and the disadvantages that we face day to day. Loss leaders and pricing, cost disadvantage. And to have this transition to the liquor business, I think would be tragic and very, very difficult for us to overcome. And I think Bill also hit another important point, which is the asset value of the businesses that we all hold. And the impact, the immediate impact that this medallion system would have on us would also be very, very tragic. I've tried to understand the governor's intent, what this would bring to the consumer, and it's really hard to discern and to understand what the bottom line actually would be and how we would actually, how the consumer would actually benefit from it. The downside impact of stores closing and people losing their jobs would be real. There's no doubt that that would happen. So thank you for your time today.
I want to thank, well, first, are there any questions from any of you? We've been doing all the
Yeah,
talking.
can we assume then that if this, I mean, legislation, as you know, is a fluid thing. It changes. That if the medallions were not portable, that if the pricing were amended to just be a reduction in the excise tax, that you would not oppose Sunday opening? 7-day-a-week openings is really the issue.
Mark, I think that the real issue for all of us is to ask the question whether we need any changes to Connecticut's current system of liquor distribution.
Well, the public overwhelmingly favors being able to buy a case of beer at the supermarket on Sunday, because Sunday now turns out to be the largest shopping day of the week. I didn't know that, but I've been out on Sunday, and I guess they're right.
And Mark, I would encourage you not to fall into the trap which I think the governor is setting for all of us, which is to turn this debate to that issue, when the real debate is about the terms of this particular bill.
Well, like I said, if it were amended and changed so that the medallions were not portable, so that, movable, or however, whatever word you want to use. In other words, they had to stay in the town to which they were originally assigned. Of course, that still wouldn't keep some big outfit from moving into your town. I understand that, but some big town is not going to, some big outfit is not going to move into Kent. The problem would be some central location. I don't know what you would consider the center here. Is it Torrington? What's the large community center here? I don't even remember. Is it Torrington?
Torrington.
Yeah, it's Torrington. That's what the period. Well, it's not Hartford. I know that. It's too long to drive. But if some of these things were changed, I mean, you know, Carol Hughes has made the point that these Sunday would stretch these small guys because they'd have to pay somebody to keep the place open on Sunday, and it would just spread their business across 7 days.
What we're here to discuss, and what it's important that everyone take away from this, there is a 24-page bill with 25 sections in it. Sunday sales is a debate we can and should have, but the underlying contents of this bill would be the death knell for small businesses in many communities in Connecticut. Too often the legislature takes action and the people it affects don't know what hits them until after it happens. We're not going to let that happen this time. The fact that all of you are here means we're not going to let something happen that's going to result in these businesses being put on the ropes. We're going to fight it every inch of the way. And not all of these individuals are going to be able to make it to Hartford on Tuesday at 11. They've got businesses to run. That's why I'm so happy that all of you are here, because we need members of the public to understand that if they like the convenience of having a friendly neighborhood package store, if they appreciate the contributions that all of these individuals make to the communities they call home, the public has to get behind us and contact the governor and say, this is not what we want for the people of the state of Connecticut. So I'm delighted that all of you are here to help us send that message, and I hope that everyone will pay attention as this bill progresses.
Right.
Are there any other questions?
What if
Jeff?
you have a petition? We'd like to hear about that.
Oh,
Mike
yeah, we
Higgins.
had a petition.
Yeah.
What was your name again, sir?
Mike Higgins,
Mike?
Litchfield Hills Wine Market.
Yeah.
We started an online petition and launched it Monday, and we collected about 4,000 signatures so far, so online. And I know that some of these guys have the papers at their registers in the stores, so I'm sure there's more than that in the being tallied.
Right, and what's, do we have the address of your online petition? It's a website or something?
Yeah,
We can get that.
that for you guys.
But one of you reluctantly said that this would benefit a small percentage of people in the state. And I wonder what you might say to them, because they're obviously going to benefit from it.
I think Representative Minor was the one who made that point. So
I'd be happy to clarify it. I think that the point here is that this is going to shift the asset value from these people either to nowhere, the state of Connecticut, and they're going to put it in their pocket and no one gets it, or the sales value that's inured here every day at the cash register is going to go somewhere else. And so as you start to reduce the number of retail facilities and transfer those retail sales to larger facilities that already have the infrastructure to handle it, no one gets a job. I was fascinated the other day to learn that Stop and Shop was handing out a flyer saying end the blue laws and go to www.something.
Big sign.
But I wonder whether the people in the florist section of Stop and Shop have ever thought about it only takes a cinder block wall in Stop and Shop and that florist section becomes this liquor store. And maybe they decide at the corporate level that there's more money in gin than there is in whether somebody buys a flower. And that's the impact of this. That the largest wholesalers in the state of Connecticut will consume the smallest wholesalers. That the way that this is drafted, the medallion system allows people to buy in bulk, maybe in Hartford County, and move it out here. And that doesn't necessarily mean, based on the studies that have been talked about today, that gives people here a lower price. That just means that it's going to go in someone else's pocket. And I think most people here, if they read this bill, they will find all sorts of fascinating reading. Why is it that we need to create a liquor store in a casino? Why is it that the Mothers Against Drunk Driving has come out in support of this piece of legislation? It is absurd that this piece of legislation has gone under the radar in the state of Connecticut to the extent that it has for the time that it has. And I know yesterday, having been in the chamber, there's a lot of effort being put on people to pass this bill as is. And I think it's important for people in the state of Connecticut to get in touch with their legislators. Senator Roraback said, if you don't care about these little businesses, don't pay any attention, because this will happen.
Well, don't you think, though, part of it is that the governor is a product, he's never lived in a town like this. He grew up in Stamford, a reasonably large city, went to school in Boston, and worked in New York. So he doesn't know this culture. You know, maybe you need to.
Maybe it's time he got an education.
Well, maybe you need to take him out to one of these small towns.
And I'm very much aware that during the time he ran for office, he visited a lot of these small towns. He has a very sophisticated staff. I'm sure if you spent any time with them, they can tell you what they think this bill does. And it is a very complicated piece of legislation.
But now, with regard to the pricing, I mean, I can't imagine that you're not objecting to that either. I mean, it's really, it's unfair to compare it to gasoline, because the reason the gasoline tax is so high is because we have no tolls anywhere in the state. There's nothing to compare that to.
In fact, the price of gasoline and liquor land in an individual state at roughly the same price, with the only variable being transportation.
Right, no, I understand that, right, but they.
And an excise tax.
Right.
So
So when they
that's
gave
actually
up the tolls, they committed to having a higher
Tolls are an
tax.
additional revenue stream that defrays that.
No,
we're
but we
talking
used to
about-
have both, is my point.
Correct.
That's why it's not, you never had anything comparable to that on beer and wine and liquor.
Correct.
Yeah, sure. Please step up to the microphone, because you may have a gem that will end up on television.
Sorry.
Who are you, sir?
Peter Carpenter.
Peter?
I own the Village Wine Cellar
Yeah.
down the road in Litchfield. I'm also 30 years in business. Don't forget, there are some very large liquor stores in the state. They make a living, I make a living. Pricing for us is pretty much the same. In the 70s, I believe late 70s, when they changed the pricing and the minimums in the state, that law helped the largest of stores get an advantage over the smaller stores. But it didn't hurt the smaller stores. They can still survive on what's there, because there's some equality there. The biggest of stores that have 20 employees, they sell more volume, but their margins are about the same as ours. So it affords us the smaller stores with 3 employees, to go ahead and have the small business.
Right, but under what he's proposing, you'd still have the same pricing policy, whether you were large, small, or small.
No.
Oh, well, explain.
That's why I'm here.
He's switching. He wants to switch it to a volume sale, which means,
Oh, yeah, I guess I
for all intents and purposes, it's kind of hard for me in front of the TV. If I buy a case of wine with 12 bottles in it, it's $10 a bottle. It's $120. Makes sense to everybody? The wholesalers put that on sale for maybe $20. So now it's $100 a case. Next month it'll be $120. The following month it'll be $100. So I can buy it at $100 and save the $20. But it's one case or 1,000 cases, it's all the same price. The new structure will go from one case being one price, 5 cases being another price, 50 cases being another price, 100 being another. And if he goes to 9 permits and one of the largest chains says, we want a deal, we're going to buy 10,000 cases of an item over the next 6 months, we want the rock bottom price. That leaves us out of the loop again. Right now, we buy 1, we buy 1,000. They're all the same price for everybody.
Right.
Additionally, you should know about graduated pricing. What they simply do is if Peter's paying $100 a case for one case, in most states, what happens when they change regulations the way the governor proposes is now the price for one case becomes, say, $150, and the maximum buy amount, let's say they set it at 10 cases, that becomes $100. Effectively, no lower prices result, benefiting the consumer, simply a higher price penalty for a smaller buy. That's the scenario that we're really looking at here. You understand that?
Yep, perfect. Any other questions? I want to thank Tony and Joanna for letting us into their store, Kate and Patty for letting us disrupt your business. Everyone could pick up a bottle of wine on the way out. That would be a nice way to help the economy here in Goshen and pay for it. Yes, exactly.
All right.
And please, and I want to thank all the small business owners from Litchfield County who've made it here today on short notice. We will not take our eye off of this ball, and we will ask you to come wherever we think you need to be to defeat this legislation, including to the state Senate and the state House of Representatives on the day we vote, so that you can look people in the eye and tell them what they're doing to you. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Andrew, Richard, thank you all.
Can I have a picture of you and Andrew, please?
This could be dangerous. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. You're both, Richard. You're both. No, it's important to do it now. The timing is important, and it's important to know that it's sort of all in the works. It's very
attorney's office. Thank you. Don't get them mad.
You may be supportive of this.
That's what I said.
To the reporters who are still here, I just wanted to mention that there are about 1,200 independent liquor stores in the state of Connecticut. Okay, just so that you get an idea of the scope.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here, John. Thank you so much. Jeffrey, thank you for being here.
Thanks. Nice to see you.
Peter, nice to see you.
I own a pork in my actually. Yes. And I had a situation where I had the Azure in my store just last week. The manager came in and literally told me that they were writing this bill. And it shocks me and appalls me that our voted legislators aren't preparing these bills and the corporations.
Peter, you should be shocked and appalled. What shocks and appalls we as members of the legislature is the governor doesn't think that we have a role to play in this process. He consults, whenever he consults, he cooks up a deal, and our opinions, he doesn't want our opinions to matter. We're going to do our level best to make our opinions matter, because that's our job.
Well, I'm close to John. Don't reach out to John, but I'll be there to support you any way we can.
I appreciate that.
This is a death knell.
No, I understand that, and the fact that so many of you are here today is a pretty good indication of how much this matters.
I worked in the corporate treasurer of a large corporation, this company down in New York City for years. We had rooms full of tax lawyers who found out ways not to pay Connecticut taxes. And but honestly, I know a lot of the structures that they do. I mean, this money's going to end up in Massachusetts with Stop and Shop, and Walmart's coffers. The state's not to see the revenues they projected on sync.
No, I have very little confidence in revenue projections that are generated by the state.
Our store, we support our corporate. We are the largest store in the area. But then again, we play fair. We work with a lot of people in the room.
I'm sure you do.
So they will not achieve what they think they can do. I don't know what they're trying to achieve.
We'll find out.
We appreciate your support.
Peter, thank you very much. John.
Andrew, thank you.
Thank you for being here. Nice to see you. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Good job.
Secret Service. You know what? You must think I have a chance. Must be.
Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
You know your way home?
Cameron says, well, you know, they got $3 a bottle very much.
Yes.
A lot of that is cheap.
Right. It's our own fault, and then you point to that and say, for how great they are. Right. Because, it's nice to see you. How are you? Thank you for being here. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Once he's on first, then
And watch how many Connecticut tags are in there.
Where did they get the numbers, you know? I mean, I've been to the Yankee Spirit Massachusetts and Saturday.
Yes.
There's 6 Connecticut cars, Connecticut plates, and 8 Massachusetts.
Right.
On Saturday.
Understood. Well, they could be at your store, right? So
they're not
if you're
they're only on
right,
Sunday.
and if you go to Guido's and Great Barrington, we're in the neighborhood.
And then
I am too, actually.
This 30 years to a nice
I understand.
It's akin to putting a trailer park next to your house.
I understand. We're confiscating your property and saying that building
If we can get more tax revenue out of the trailer park, next to your house.
Yes.
Well, we always think that.
So thank you for being here. All right. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Craig's gonna go. You gotta take care of Craig's gonna go. I gotta keep her at.
You guys did a great job. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate it.
Shall we move on out? Thank you very much. Keep our small business. They don't grow people more in. Have a nice week.
Oh yeah. They're an independent lot. Oh yeah. Hey Chris, how are you? Thank you for being here.
Only my
Yeah.
Not so much.
Do you get a chance to travel about?
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Not looking strictly.
I do. I have
That's good. It's good to do that. So you get to learn the people.
Haven't had a chance to look at what you sent me.
Past life. We can work on that.
Occasionally, I don't. Yeah, well, actually, doing what I'm doing now, I may be becoming more.
I know. You gotta show your support, Andrew. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, sorry.
Actually, Jeff is taping us because he wants to catch us in bad moments. So.
Bad moment. Well, let me show you some. No. Should we show our paper gun? I don't want to do. No, you're very welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for taking the time. Appreciate it. You like it's like 2
I'm John from Bethel.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'm
I own a store. Following the search.
Yeah, me too.
Actually, this turned out exactly as I said. First of all of you were finally equally important. All these people.
Yeah, that was a good deal.
Because we brought kind of a message before this year.
Yeah. On Tuesday, is the whole legislative body there?
No, just the committee, just the Joe Tabersack's committee.
Joe's who we were met with Tuesday.
Yeah, his opinion matters.
Yeah.
He seemed to listen.
He did, yeah, he was encouraging.
He's a nice person, he's a smart person. The question, I think, without disparaging him, the governor has a lot of muscle, but he has a history of throwing around. So we'll see.
And once it goes through that committee, then it goes to finance. And if finance sees that, you know what, it's not going to generate any revenue. Is that?
Yeah, again, a lot of it depends on how hard the governor pushes. I'm on the finance committee, I'll get a crack at it.
So there's multiple committees that can kill it before it goes to the floor.
That's correct.
I thought it was just one, so I didn't realize that.
Yeah, depending on, this certainly affects tax revenue, it certainly affects the liquor trade, which the general office jurisdiction goes to go up. But stay tuned, and I appreciate very much your being here. Thank you. Have a nice weekend. Have a nice weekend, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's good to see you.
Hi, Andrew.
Sorry.